Welcome back to Canadian Justice, where we're discussing what it means to be found not criminally responsible for reason of mental disorder. Now, Kabir, why does our system work this way? Why do we treat defendants differently when they have a mental disorder? Why does this defense even exist?
In our justice system, we only find people guilty and convict individuals that commit acts intentionally. What the law has decided is that some individuals, when they're not committing an act intentionally because they are under some mental illness or some other issue, that those people should not be held responsible because they didn't do it intentionally. They weren't thinking logically, they weren't thinking rationally, and as a result, it's a bit of an in between from guilty and not guilty that they're not criminally responsible. And that's why we have this verdict.
Joseph, is there anything you want to add to that? I know a lot of our viewers might be familiar with the legal terms mens res and actus reus. Does mental illness fit into the mens rea part of that distinction? Maybe you can explain what that is.
Yeah, it's exactly what Kabir was saying. So you have to have the mental intent to commit an offense. So for first degree murder, specific to kill an individual, and then planning and deliberation. What happens with a mental illness is an individual is robbed of their ability to appreciate the nature and quality of their acts or the moral and legal wrongfulness of it. So they're robbed of that mental element. And that's because of their delusional or psychotic disorder. So we don't convict people who are mentally ill. We deal with them in a different way. Although they committed the act, the mental element is not present because of the pervasive illness.
Now, I know there's some people who are watching this who have heard the argument before, and maybe they've made it. They say people plead insanity. They plead the insanity defense, which is what sometimes people call this not criminally responsible for reason of mental disorder, and they view that as a get out of jail free card. Joseph, they say you argue this and you can get away with murder. Basically, what's your response to that argument that some people make?
Yeah, so I think it's very important that the public understands that this is not a get out of jail free, and it we can't get mixed up with the United States. There's no such thing as temporary insanity. What it is an NCR based upon a cogent foundation of evidence that somebody was mentally ill. And as a result of that, the individual will wind up going to a mental health facility. I sat on the Ontario Review Board for 19 years as a lawyer and an alt chairperson. So what happens is they will then go to a locked facility, a secure facility, where they are in a room. We treat them not properly as we should any person who's not well or even convicted of an offense, and they will be involved in continuous assessments and treatment modalities including medication and vocational training as well as psychological and a battery of other things, but they have their privileges significantly restricted. On a case like this, a person will wind up in a medium to maximum secure facility where they remain in their range or their area for a long period of time. They will be gradually granted privileges, but they won't get access to the community for a long, long time. And they
Yeah,
have to respond to medication.
Joseph, let me ask you about that process. So now that he's been found not criminally responsible, he goes to the Ontario Review Board, which, as you said, you sit on. And what do they look at when deciding where they're going to send him? What privileges he might get? What factors are they considering when
Okay.
reaching those decisions?
Okay, so I used to sit on it for 19 years. I don't now. But what will happen is there will be a report prepared. It'll go to the panel. There's lawyers who represent the hospital, lawyer who represents the Crown and the individual. And what's key factors is to take a look at the offending behavior, to take a look at the history of illness, how long it's been ingrained, treatment, what are their treatment prospects, and really what we're looking at or what they would look at is risk profile. So what's their level of risk at this time? And typically this is early stages where somebody may be receiving treatment at the jail, but it's very early stages. There's extensive assessment and treatment that's necessary. So the risk profile for this individual will be fairly significant. So they will wind up being transferred to somewhere like CAMH or Ontario Shores or somewhere else in a medium secure facility.
And can you? We've only got 45 seconds left, but what are those facilities like?
Well, they're very similar to jails in the sense that there's locked areas. There's other areas which are minimum units. They use different language now, but there's minimum units where there's much more access to the grounds and the hospital. They're very pleasant facilities. Some are more modernized than others. and they have lots of activities, vocational training, recreational, access to grounds. They're pleasant facilities, but that doesn't mean the incident itself is not treated seriously. It is, but we're dealing with somebody who's
Hmm.
mentally ill, not somebody who intentionally wanted to kill an individual, but did it
Right.
because of a delusional system.
We've got to go to break now, but we'll be right back.